Looks like Trump does so far have the votes. Biden won't answer if he'd pack the Supreme Court. Mitt Romney looks like a yes. The CDC changes some COVID guidance. Who should get the vaccine first? And an NYPD officer spying for China. Welcome, friends, to the Buck Sexton Show. An honor, as always, to have you here with me. Now, let's get right to it. Looks, as of today, like Trump has the votes in the Senate to get a Supreme Court nominee confirmed and through to the seat recently left vacant by Ruth Bader Ginsburg's departure. So now we have to figure out what are the Democrats planning next, because right now I understand the inclination would be for all of us to say, okay, the Republicans have every right to do this. As much as Democrats whine about it, doesn't matter. They have a constitutional, not only clear designation for this, they have an obligation. I think that's a better way of putting it. Here is the vice president saying just that. Play 14.
President Trump believes that he has an obligation under the Constitution of the United States to put forward a nominee for the Supreme Court. There have been 29 times that there have been vacancies since George Washington through Barack Obama. In all 29 cases, the president has made a nomination to the Supreme Court during an election year. And President Trump believes that it's his responsibility and his duty to do that again. The Senate's role is to advise and consent, and we're working already with the Republican leadership in the Senate to make arrangements for the process to move forward. But we believe, judging from history, I believe Justice Ginsburg was confirmed within 43 days of her nominations. Justice Sandra Day O'Connor in less time than that.
So it's been done in less time. It's been done many times under the same circumstances. And there's no rule, there's no law, there's nothing to prevent it. There's not even a precedent to prevent it. So the libs are flailing right now. They're trying to come up with some argument that will turn the tide in favor for them, and they're not succeeding. Because we do have the ability to go back and look at what's happened in the past. And we also understand that there's the obligation of politics here, too. Why do we vote for the president as Republicans? Why do we vote for these various senators if when they finally have the opportunity to do what they have been promising to do, they don't do it? How could we think they have the courage of their convictions if they refuse to take the opportunities that come to them to fulfill promises? I mean, it would be a choice to not fulfill this promise to Republican voters. Why would they do that? Out of some misplaced sense of fair play? Got to tell you, I had been thinking that Mitt Romney would find the first opportunity possible to try and back out of this just because of spite against Trump. But it seems perhaps Mitt Romney recognizes that there's no real argument here. There's no real argument against what the president's trying to do. There's the only pseudo arguments, bad faith arguments. I saw a piece by Never Trumpers, David French and Jonah Goldberg making the rounds about how what's best for our republic would be to cave to Democrat demands here under the promise that they then won't pack the Supreme Court, as if that's a concession to us. First of all, if anyone believes that Democrats would keep a promise not to pack the Supreme Court based upon this nomination battle, they probably also believe that Jussie Smollett was attacked by two MAGA hat wearers in Chicago at 1 o'clock in the morning yelling, "This is MAGA country." If you believe one, you probably believe the other, which is not a good indication of one's intelligence. Democrats will break their word on this. Democrats were all on the opposing side of the table in 2016. They did not, or 2015. 2016. They did not care. They simply, it doesn't matter to them that they're all on the record telling us that of course the president has this power in election year. Of course he should be able to. That was when they thought they could strong arm us into going with Merrick Garland. That was when they believed if they had the media and enough whiny law professors and former prosecutors and other people that we're supposed to revere, and I don't know why, but if we had enough of that, they believed that we would be able to, we would cave and they'd get what they want. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen. And Mitch McConnell deserves a lot of credit because they tried the pressure campaign then. They tried all the stuff that they're making in terms of arguments now. Plus, now you got to add to it, they're camping outside of people's homes, no sleep for Lindsey Graham, no sleep for Mitch McConnell, looking for weak links in this chain. I thought Romney would be a weak link. So far, we'll see. I'm not giving Romney an attaboy until we see whether or not he actually does his duty here to the voters of Utah. Right? KNRS, a great station out in Salt Lake City, having added us to their lineup. I know the folks in Utah, not all of them love Trump. A lot of them do. Not all of them love Trump, but they do expect somebody who is a Republican senator from the great state of Utah to support this most important of tasks for conservatism, for constitutionalism in the Republican Party, getting us a judge that will truly tip the balance away from what it has been for decades. You see, Democrats have gotten a little too smug and emotionally and intellectually complacent when it comes to the court. They're so used to, at this point, just being able to count on the court coming up with nonsense, with legislation by fiat of a bunch of lawyers who have been appointed as judges. And Ginsburg was one of the best examples of that. I mean, Ginsburg was using the Supreme Court as a super legislature, which is not what it is supposed to be. But it was always the stopgap against legislation. It was a stopgap against the representative form of government that we have, our republic, that even if the people wanted something, voted for someone, and that leader then tried to execute on the promise, the lib Supreme Court would step in and say, nope, we see a different thing here. We see a right that no one else had been able to figure out in 200 years. We see an interpretation of this language that's not English, but who cares? We make it up as we go along. That's what they've been doing. In fact, Mitt Romney is correct when he points out, and look, Mitt had his good moments back in the day. He crushed Obama in that first presidential debate. Of course, Obama went on to win. But it was an embarrassing performance for Barack Obama. Everybody knew it. And Mitt Romney does have his capabilities. I wish he hadn't marched with BLM. That was a lame, cowardly move, but he did. But here he is, at least understanding what's going on with liberals and the court and their perception that what has been will always be. Not the case. Play 17.
Well, I think it's straightforward in terms of the qualifications you look for, which is someone who is an expert of the law, someone who has a record of fairness and judgment that you think is consistent with the law. I prefer choosing those folks who are, if you will, strict constructionists, meaning that they look at the law itself and the Constitution, as opposed to sort of looking into the sky and pulling out ideas that they think may be more appropriate than either the law or the Constitution. So I recognize that we may have a court which has more of a conservative bent than it's had over the last few decades. But my liberal friends have, over many decades, gotten very used to the idea of having a liberal court. And that's not written in the stars. And I know that a lot of people are saying, gosh, we don't want that change. I understand the energy associated with that perspective. But it's also appropriate for a nation which is, if you will, center-right, to have a court which reflects center-right points of view, which, again, are not changing the law from what it states, but instead following the law and following the Constitution.
What Mitt says here is correct. Right? Truth is truth, whether it comes from Mitt Romney or anybody else. The libs just believe that there is some sanctified imaginary right to always have a liberal leading Supreme Court that will give them what they want. And people say, "Oh, but Buck, what about Bush Gore in 2000? Oh, you mean the court case where the swing vote?" Right. This is what the swing vote was like, guys, you can't just pick districts that are Democrat majority districts and only recount those and pick out the ones where you think you might be able to harvest more votes and not do recounts in other places in Florida where there have been equal like they were trying to scam the system, and it was obvious. But on all the major social issues, I mean, most notably abortion, gay marriage as well, among others, the court's left lean has been obvious and has been unbroken. But we may enter a new era now, and one in which we will see whether liberals are willing to abide by the rules that they were pretending were sacrosanct when they were going in their favor. Let's all be very clear about this. Democrats are effectively at this point already telling the American people, if we don't have a Supreme Court that we can count on the big social issues that are very emotional for us and that drive a lot of the Democrat Party's power, if we don't have a Supreme Court that will do that, we will break down, subvert, and destroy the system. They're pretty explicit about this. I mean, here's Don Lemon, who is sometimes too dumb to be subtle or to obscure his intent, but he's definitely a big lib. Here's what he's saying over at CNN. Play 10.
Everybody sticks
We're going to have to blow up the entire system. And you know what we're going to have to do?
No, I don't know.
You know what we're going to, yes,
Yeah.
what you have to do?
You just got to vote.
Honestly, from what your closing argument is, you're going to have to get rid of the Electoral College. Because the people...
I don't see it.
Because the minority in this country decides who the judges are and they decide who the president is.
But you need a constitutional amendment to do that.
And if Joe Biden wins, Democrats can stack the courts and they can do that amendment and they can get it passed.
Well, you need two-thirds vote in the Congress and 3/4 of the state legislatures.
They may be able to do that.
Yeah. About as big a waste of time as the Convention of the States project to talk about, by the way. But here we are. Here we are. That's what Democrats are promising, that they're going to be able to get a constitutional amendment, that they're going to change the whole system. They're going to change the whole system such that it comports with their desires. But we've listened to the system for a very long time, right? We've been obeying. We who are pro-life, we've said, okay, I mean, this is the law, even though it's immoral and wrong, but we're not going to break the law, subvert the law. I mean, people aren't going to advocate. The Republican Party doesn't advocate for, shutting down with force the way that BLM does, shutting down with force businesses that they don't like, shutting down abortion clinics. The right has not been doing that. We've said, okay, this is the law. Let's work to change the law. And now we see the little tyrannical side of the Democrats where the law is just an impediment to their desires. They don't care. When the system went against the right, what did the right do? Let's rebuild. Let's win elections. And when the time comes and we have the legal right and authority to make certain decisions, we'll make different decisions. The Democrat view is when we have the power, that's what we do. When you have the power, we shut down the system and make sure that you can't use it. And people want to talk about good faith and fair play with them. I mean, are Goldberg and David French, are they? No, they're just never-Trumpers who have boxed themselves in to intellectually ridiculous positions now. Now, among many other never-Trumpers who have done the same thing. A lot of them are part of this Lincoln Project garbage. Now it's always, the conservative case for abortion, the conservative case for undermining everything you believe. This is what never-Trumpers have been turned into. It's quite sad, actually. It's really rather pathetic. And that's where it is. That's what we see happening. They are telling you if they don't get their way, they're going to break things, they're going to disrespect, undermine, and alter the system itself. They're going to change the rules of the game. They're not going to try to win the game with fair play. This is the Democrat approach to everything in politics now, but particularly around a judicial nomination like this. This is the same thing as saying, okay, you have 4 quarters to win a football game. We're going to change it. And now it's going to be whoever can get the most field goals in the first 2 quarters. That's the winner. Well, that's a totally different game. Oh, that's what they're going to do. Or they're just going to pay off the refs and just openly cheat. Whatever they have to do, they will do. That's what you're seeing, which is why I want to tell you right now, this pause where it feels like, wow, Romney is being sane, which is Okay, look, when it happens, I'll say it's a good thing, and credit where it's due. Truth is truth, credit where it's due. Two principles on this show. If Romney casts the right vote here, we're going to say, hey, high five to Mitt Romney for not being a total sellout coward. Good job. But I don't think we can get there yet. Well, obviously it hasn't happened, but I don't want us to become complacent at all. Remember the analogy I used, right? This is a rabid squirrel that we're injecting meth into. No one really knows how this is going to turn out. This is going to be crazy. The libs aren't going to just quietly allow this process to play out. They're going to go full Alinsky on this. Yeah, they have no parliamentary procedure to play. They have no means of stopping this. It would be like trying to stop a presidential pardon. I mean, the president's allowed to pardon who he wants to pardon, but they're going to go to that level of what if we take the pen out of his hand? What if we don't allow him to, write it down? What if we prevent the president from, that's what we're going to see. I believe that they're going to physically block members of Congress from being able to hold a session. I think that they're going to do things that right now, if you said out loud, people would call you someone who's being, worrying too much, who's being hyperbolic. No, I think that's what we're going to. I don't know what it is yet, but always leave room for crazy, my friends. I've been saying that to you for many years. Always leave room for crazy. And these Democrats are completely nuts and will do anything that they think will be successful to stop this Supreme Court nomination. What does losing your home have to do with the COVID-19 pandemic? Well, here's the thing. Home title theft is a cybercrime, and the FBI says cyber theft is up 75% during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's growing constantly. The bad guys from all over the world find ways to rip you off. They can do this using your home's title. It's online, and the bad guys then use a quitclaim deed to kick you off your home's title, put them on, and they start taking out cash based on your equity. You might not find out about this until you start getting bills in the mail or perhaps even an eviction notice. The usual identity theft services do not protect you. You've got to go with Home Title Lock. Home Title Lock creates a virtual barrier around your home's title. Just go to HometitleLock.com, use the promo code BUCK. You'll get 30 free days of protection. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code BUCK for 30 free days of protection. You can also check and see if you're a victim of this crime and don't even know it. HometitleLock.com, promo code BUCK.
Well, the Democrats are going to hang together, and I think the American people would be very interested to know that is it asking too much to have Republicans actually live up to their word? Already we see that Lindsey Graham is not, that we see that Mitch McConnell is not, so Republicans can't be trusted to keep their word, and the American people should know that. We will explore every tool that we Democrats have to keep Mitch McConnell from shoving this nominee down our throat.
They're going to come up with stuff that you and I can't even think about right now because they're emotionally deranged over this Ruth Bader Ginsburg seat. George Stephanopoulos' wife, it was reported in Daily Mail, I forget her name, she's like a third-tier actress, or was. She cried for 45 minutes. Obviously, this was told to the press. Cried for 45 minutes with her whole family in the car when they heard Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. That's bizarre. That's not normal. You don't know this person. You don't love this person. You have no relationship with her. You're going to cry for 45 minutes with your whole family because a judge, who we all know is really a political figure, passes away at the age of 80, whatever it was? Really? They think that's normal, folks. They think that's sane. Another rule for life, not just for politics, but for everything you do, never take advice from your enemy about what's best for you, okay? Don't take advice from people who don't want to see your future go well, who don't want to see you succeed. When they say, hey, you know what you should really do? Listen to that thing and do the other thing. right? Listen to that thing that they're telling you and then go back to whatever you know is a better option and feel even more confident in it. That's how you should feel about people like Nancy Pelosi coming out to tell you that this is bad politically for Republicans. It's going to be like the 2018 midterms, right? Here she is. Nancy Pelosi. Play it.
The people know that, and that's why the Republicans are rushing. They want to get it done so they can overturn the Affordable Care Act. And you know what? They're going to be paying this price for elections to come. Elections to come. Everyone's looking at what makes a difference in these senatorial races. We'll see. But what they don't really understand is they're going to see 2018 again and again and again.
It could not be more ironclad. It could not be more clear to any of us who are paying attention to this that Nancy Pelosi telling Republicans that if they put through this Supreme Court justice, whoever it may be, we don't know yet. I think it is going to be Amy Coney Barrett, but could be wrong. But Pelosi telling you that this would be bad for Republicans is a 100% certainty that Republicans will pay a terrible price if they don't do this, which we already knew anyway. But notice how shameless she is. Oh, yeah, sure. It's going to be so bad for... This is just whining. Republicans, you're going to lose forever if you do this thing. I promise. No. The Republican Party would be massacred in the next election if they didn't at least do everything they can. Now, when I say everything they can, I'm worried that, Democrats are going to go to a whole other place that I can't even psychologically really get there. I'm like, how? Remember, they were willing to lie about a man who was manifestly innocent of any wrongdoing. They were willing to read into the congressional record, as Kamala Harris, the current vice presidential nominee, did. Unsubstantiated, completely outrageous and insane and obviously false gang rape, high school gang rape allegations about now Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh. If you're willing to do that, you have no morality that will stop you from doing something. It's just a question of, are you worried about the punishment for doing certain things, illegal things, for example, open violence to stop this from happening? One of the reasons why Democrats, I think, wouldn't necessarily go the open violence route to keep the seat is because there are enough people who believe in the law and order that they would be punished for that. Because I do worry. I worry there are going to be threats of violence. I'm sure there already are against the various Supreme Court nominees, but that they'll become more intense. And Republicans, we do not do a good enough job of protecting our people who fall under this ring of hatred from the left. I mean, all of a sudden, it's like the eye of Sauron pops up and is focused on one person on the right. And we all say, oh, I hope they've got a nice personal security detail or something. We do not do enough. Never happens in the left. When was the last time a prominent Democrat had a mob of morons outside his or her home shouting threats and epithets and insanity over a political issue? We don't do that. They do. Look, not all political parties are created equal, my friends, or are equal. Not all of them are similar in their aspirations, their morality, their culture of respect for rule of law, for open discourse, for human and individual freedom. They're not all the same. All right. The Bolsheviks winning in the Soviet Union was not just something that had to happen and, well, it would have been the same if anybody. No, it would not have been the same if some other party had won. It would have been better, almost certainly. I don't see it's possible how it couldn't have been. All right. And then people, and then, look, I don't like the Nazi analogies that Democrats do all the time, but, the Nazis were democratically elected. They cheated and threatened people and used coercion, but Nazis were democratically elected in Germany. So it's not like that's impossible. But there were clearly much more moral political options in Germany before it became Nazi Germany. I'm just trying to tell you folks, when I say the Democrats have gone insane and their party has really lost its way, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not saying it for attention. It's true. It's clear. Look at what is normal for them. And it's not normal for us, and anybody can see it. Conservatives sit around saying, okay, what are the laws? What really matters? How do we protect people? How do we make sure that everyone has, as good and safe and prosperous and happy a life as possible? Democrats, this makes me feel upset, and I will ruin your life because of it. That is their ethos. And they will even threaten your life because of it now. I always see these insane libs, the things that they send me. Here's a rule. If you ever, and I know no one who listens to the show would ever do such a thing, but if one ever sends a threat against a person or his family because they don't like that individual's politics, they're a loser. That person is a loser and somebody who really needs to re-examine all their life choices. It's a rule. Normal, happy, well-adjusted people do not do that. Okay? And we should all understand that the Democrat Party has now gone to a place where it's ideologically incoherent. You have all these different factions that don't really share any philosophical core other than the pursuit of power, just raw power. We'll band together so that, you can get what you want and I can get what I want within the Democrat Party. That's it. There's no real philosophy other than moral relativism and whatever it takes whenever you need to do it. So it's effectively pushing us toward a thugocracy, especially as they're openly talking about destroying the very institutions that keep this country together. They complained from the beginning of Trump's presidency about how he was tearing down institutions. He did not tear down any institutions. It's not true. All right. And he did, and I would have liked to have seen him go after some things more than he did. But he didn't tear down institutions. That was a lie. But beyond that, they now openly threaten to destroy the very institutions that they pretended to care so much about for the first few years of Trump's presidency. Again, there's just hypocrisy, flip-flop. It doesn't matter. They'll say today something that's in direct contradiction to what they said yesterday or last year or 10 years ago and never explain any transformation in their thinking. It's just, I want this thing now. Democrats are the equivalent of someone who says, I don't think it's fair for me to pay rent. Tell the landlord that I don't want to pay. And then someone who is a renter from them turns around and says, I don't want to pay you rent. They say, no, I'm the landlord. You have to give me money. That's what our contract says. Is there a principle there? No, of course not. It's just they want what they want, and that's the plan. That's all that matters. So we should understand that right now. And that's why it's hilarious to me when you hear Chuck Schumer making a case, making an appeal to honor and decency. Oh, gosh, Chuck. Play 9.
In the kind of country we live in, this election and this vacancy mean everything. And by all rights, by every modicum of decency and honor, Leader McConnell and the Republican Senate majority have no right to fill it. No right. In the final few weeks, sensing her failing health, Justice Ginsburg told her family that it was her, quote, most fervent wish that she not be replaced until a new president is installed.
First of all, they have every right, legally, by precedent, by history, by the system. They have every right. There is no question about this. They're breaking no law, no regulation, no constitutional norm. So they, in fact, have every right. What he's doing is just gaslighting. But also, and I want to really put this delicately so the libs in the way back who are quietly listening to this because they know that I'm smarter than all the libs that they listen to, and they want to understand why is this guy so much smarter than all the Democrats that are trying to feed me, crap on their podcast. I don't give a blanking blank about what Ruth Bader Ginsburg told her family in the last. That's for her and her family. It shouldn't even be publicly discussed. It has zero bearing on anything. Do not care. Would say this anywhere to anyone. Do not care at all what she said. I don't care if her last words were, I'm actually a space alien from the planet Zargon, or my fondest constitutional dream is that the next president and not Trump. Doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Same thing in terms of it matters to me, zero. It matters to the law, to the Constitution, to our system, zero. But they keep repeating this. It's pathetic. It's pathetic, but let's remember who we're dealing with. While it's irrational, while it's not a real argument, it does drive an emotional response. It does go to this cult of RBG that was created over many years and that had, as I've said to you, people who think that they're really hip and cool praising the amazing fierceness of the RBG gym workout, which is just, it was a weird thing. It was creepy cult-like thinking from people. But you're not dealing with normal adults here, my friends. You're dealing with people who now believe that with the passing of Ginsburg, the entire country is at stake, which also goes to show you how much emphasis they put on the Supreme Court as a super legislature and how much they've gotten used to this. And it really unsettles them. You know, they think the foundation of this country is I get what I want, and if I don't, at least I know that at the end of the day, the Supreme Court will give me what I want. And on the issue of abortion alone, for how many decades now have people been raised with this? It's constitutional. It's the law of the land, which of course it is not. It is not constitutional. It never was constitutional. It is violence to the Constitution to even pretend that Roe v. Wade was well decided. Honest liberals, honest legal scholars on the liberal side will even say, they'll say that they think that abortion should be legal, and here's why, right? But they'll say that the reasoning in Roe is preposterous. Right to privacy that creates, it's just, you can do this with anything. But that's the whole point. Libs want to be able to do whatever they want through the law and pretend that it's the law, which in fact undermines the very foundation of our legal system every time they engage in that practice. But imagine what it's like for them to wake up and realize that, no, you no longer can just shout people down with, it's the law. It might be the law in some states, not the law in other states. You know, there was a period of time on a profound moral question in this country. A profound evil was being done in this country, and there were some states that were legally much closer. They weren't where they, of course, should have been at the time, but they were much closer to being righteous than others. All right. There were the evil pro-slavery states and the states in which a black American could live in freedom. Not equal rights, and that's what I meant by it wasn't perfect, but, you know, one side was right and one side was wrong on that. And once we get away from the constitutional umbrella decision, I mean, there's this make-believe of Roe v. Wade. Now people are going to have to say, okay, at the state level, what should the law really be? It's not just going to be this blanket protection for the practice all 9 months of a pregnancy, which is the Democrat standard right now. And it's a super right as well. You can't even block access to a clinic. And they create all these special exceptions and carve-outs to protect this practice. A practice that is morally odious and evil. Slavery was morally odious. It was evil. Abortion is also odious and evil. And the whole lib mentality of the last 50 years will get a new look. Well, all of a sudden, it'll have to defend itself. It can't just say, that's the law, deal with it. That's the law, deal with it. We have been dealing with it. We may not have to keep dealing with it. And that's what the liberals really can't accept. Chuck Schumer's claims about decency and honor are laughable. He's a man with neither decency nor honor. So in that sense, he's the perfect spokesperson for the Democrat Party right now.
62% of Americans think that the Supreme Court seat should be filled by nominated by the new president. 62% of Americans. And Act Blue raised $100 million since Friday. The Democrats are mobilized against this outrage that is going on with these hypocrites in the Republican leadership positions. And you know something? They are so beneath any kind of shamelessness that it's impossible to even talk to these people. So, you were going to show the clips of them and the stupid things that the hypocritical and lying things that they've been saying.
Joy Behar may be the dumbest person on TV, but she understands the Democrat mindset.
She gives really a really clear picture of what Democrats think right now. Republicans are beneath contempt for doing something that they are clearly, and there's no question about this, clearly, legally, constitutionally allowed to do. And they keep referring to the hypocrisy of Mitch McConnell. That's a lie. Mitch McConnell, the Senate is not in the hands of the opposition. That's the McConnell rule. I don't know. I mean, they're just desperate, saying everything and anything, which is why I'm telling you, they're living in an alternate universe. They have no argument here. Tough blank is all I can say to them. Tough. They have nothing. It's kind of like they lost an election in a sense, right? They lost the election in 2016. The Supreme Court seat's open. Too bad. Maybe they shouldn't have been all encouraging Ruth Bader Ginsburg to keep going and going and going and going. I mean, she was too old for the job. That's just reality. No one's allowed to say that for some reason, but she should have retired. Just for political purposes, I'm talking about now. The Democrats made it. There was a calculation here. They thought they wanted Hillary to replace the Ginsburg seat or, well, too bad. Too bad, libs. That's really the headline here.